My name is Claire. I'm 36 years old, and until a few months ago, I thought I had the perfect life. A husband I trusted, a little baby boy who had just turned 1, and a home filled with dreams of the future. But sometimes life rips away the curtain and shows you a truth so brutal, you can never see the world the same again. Before I dive in, let me ask you this. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or your country in the comments below. I love knowing where my stories travel, and maybe you'll even find someone from your own hometown down there too. And if you've ever gone through something in your own life, betrayal, heartbreak, a moment where you felt you lost everything, share it. Someone else scrolling through the comments might need to hear your story today. And if you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. It helps more people find these stories, and trust me, you don't want to miss the twist that's coming. It started on an ordinary Tuesday. I was sitting at the kitchen table with a bottle in one hand and my phone in the other, rocking my son to sleep while half reading an article about baby sleep schedules. My husband Eric had left early that morning for what he said was a business trip. Paris. I had teased him the night before about how unfair it was that he got to drink French wine while I was stuck reheating leftover pasta. He'd kissed my forehead, laughed, and told me he'd bring me back something fancy. At 11:42 a.m. my phone buzzed. I thought it was just another reminder for my son's doctor's appointment. Instead, it was a message from Eric. A text. Not a call. Not a voice note. Just words on a screen that would burn themselves into my mind forever. Moving to Paris with Lucy. I emptied our account. Good luck surviving. At first I thought it had to be a joke. Some cruel, tasteless attempt at humor. My hands trembled as I read it again. And again. The name hit me like ice water down my back. Lucy wasn't a stranger. She was someone I knew. Someone I had invited into my home more times than I could count. And when I tell you my world shifted in that instant, I don't just mean emotionally. I physically felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. My baby stirred in my arms, his tiny hand gripping my sweater, grounding me in reality as everything else dissolved. For 10 minutes I sat frozen, staring at the message, waiting for another. An explanation. Anything. None came. That's when I opened my banking app. And my heart sank so hard I thought I might pass out. Zero. Zero in the joint account. Zero in my personal savings. Even the emergency account I had built quietly on the side was gone. Eric had wiped everything. And here's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just take your money or your security or your plans. It takes your breath, your voice, the very identity you thought was yours. But let me rewind for a second. Because if you're going to understand the depth of this story, the revenge, the twist, the unexpected ending, you need to know what came before. Eric wasn't always this man. Or maybe he was, and I was too blinded by love to see it. Eric and I met when I was 24. Back then he was charming in the kind of way that makes you feel like you're the only person in the room. You know that magnetic pull? That invisible thread that convinces you this person is different, that they see you? That was Eric. He had ambition, he had confidence, and he had this grin that made promises without ever speaking them aloud. We got married 3 years later. My parents adored him. My friends told me I had won. The perfect man, the steady job, the fairy tale wedding. I thought the story was going the way it was supposed to go. Except, there were cracks. Little ones. He would criticize my clothes in front of others, laugh off my career ideas, and remind me that he carried the real weight in our marriage. At first I brushed it off. I told myself he was stressed. That's what you do when you're in love, right? You excuse. You explain. You hope. And then Lucy appeared. Lucy was a colleague of Eric's, someone he described as brilliant and refreshing. She was 5 years younger than me, always dressed like she was walking straight out of a fashion magazine, and had this air of effortless confidence that drew people in. I didn't mind her at first. In fact, I tried to befriend her. We had dinner together, she came to our house, she played with my son after he was born. And I'll never forget one night, standing in my kitchen pouring wine, she told me, "You're so lucky, Claire. Eric talks about you like you're his whole world." I believed her. But people don't always tell the truth when they're planning their betrayal. Sometimes the sweetest words are just camouflage. So when that text came through, when I saw Lucy's name in it, I felt 2 knives twist inside me. One from my husband. One from someone I had trusted. The hours that followed were a blur. I called Eric's phone again and again. Straight to voicemail. I called Lucy's number. Disconnected. Then I started piecing things together. The extra trips Eric had claimed were last-minute work emergencies, the way he had been oddly protective of his laptop, the client dinners that left him coming home smelling of perfume that wasn't mine. But nothing compared to the reality that I had no money. Not $1 to my name. I was 36 years old with a baby in my arms, and my entire financial existence had been drained in a single morning. That's when the rage started bubbling up. Rage hotter than anything I had ever felt. I wasn't just humiliated. I wasn't just betrayed. I was robbed. Stripped bare. And if Eric thought he could disappear into Paris with my money and my dignity, he had underestimated me more than anyone ever had. I didn't cry. Not then. Not even when my baby finally drifted off to sleep and I was left alone in the quiet of that kitchen, my phone clutched in my hand like a lifeline. Instead, I opened my laptop. If Eric wanted to start a war, I wasn't going to fight it with tears. I was going to fight it with strategy. You see, Eric thought he knew me. He thought I was soft, predictable, dependent. What he didn't realize was that for the past decade, while he had been playing provider, I had been quietly studying, quietly saving, quietly preparing for a life that didn't depend on him at all. I knew about money. I knew about systems. And most importantly, I knew people. That was the night I decided. He may have stolen from me, but I wasn't going to let him win. Not only was I going to get every cent back, he was going to regret underestimating me for the rest of his life. But before I tell you how I pulled it off, let me ask you something. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted most? If you're watching this and nodding, write yes in the comments. Tell me your story. Because stories like these, they don't just belong to me. They belong to anyone who has been hurt, dismissed, or underestimated. And if you're still here, still listening, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Trust me, the next part is going to blow your mind. The first step was survival. Not revenge, not yet. You can't go to war if you don't even have a shield. Eric had emptied our joint accounts, drained the savings, even rerouted the small emergency fund I thought he didn't know about. But what he didn't realize was that years earlier, I had quietly opened an account in my name only. Not much, just a modest stash I called my quiet fund. He always teased me for being paranoid, for double-checking bills, for asking too many questions. He called me anxious when I asked where our money was really going. Well, guess what? That anxiety was about to save my life. There was $14,000 in that account. Enough to keep me and my baby afloat, but not enough for the kind of payback I had in mind. No, for that, I needed something bigger. Something stronger. I started with research. Paris wasn't just a random choice. Lucy had always bragged about how much she adored the city, how she planned to someday live like an artist in Montmartre. And Eric? He had once promised to take me there, back before promises turned into ash. They weren't hiding. These two were flaunting. Social media confirmed it. Lucy couldn't help herself. She posted a blurry shot of croissants on a cafe table, the Eiffel Tower in the background. A reflection in the window revealed Eric's watch. His favorite Rolex. My gift to him. That was all I needed. Location, confirmed. Target, identified. Next step, leverage. I called a lawyer. A woman I knew from a networking event years ago. Back then she was just an acquaintance. Today she was my weapon. I explained everything. The betrayal, the theft, the baby. And then I asked the question that had been burning in my chest since morning. What can I do? Her silence stretched for a moment. Then she said, Claire, you can do a lot more than you think. If he drained joint accounts without consent, if he took marital funds for an affair, there are legal consequences. You just have to decide how much fire you're willing to unleash. And I knew right then I wasn't holding back. So while Eric was sipping wine in Paris with Lucy, I was working. Filing papers. Sending documents. Digging through records. Every late night he thought I spent folding laundry. I had actually spent learning, preparing, building connections he didn't even know existed. I wasn't just his wife. I was his undoing. The next week something shifted in me. Rage cooled into clarity. Pain sharpened into purpose. I didn't cry over his absence anymore. I didn't replay his text in my head. I looked at my baby, my son, and I thought, he deserves a mother who doesn't crumble. He deserves a future built on strength, not scraps. And Eric? Eric deserved to choke on the ashes of everything he thought he could steal from me. So I made my move. But before I tell you exactly what I did, I want to hear from you. Has someone ever taken advantage of your kindness, thinking you were too weak to fight back? If that's you, write your city or country in the comments and tell us your story. You're not alone. And if you're watching this thinking, Claire, I would have exploded the second that text came in, then hit like and subscribe, because trust me, my explosion is coming. And it won't just be loud. It will be unforgettable. The lawyer gave me a roadmap, but I needed more than paper. I needed eyes, ears, proof. So I called in a favor from someone Eric never knew existed, Julian. Julian was an old college friend who moved to Paris years ago. He was the kind of man who always knew someone who knew someone. A connector. A problem solver. And when I told him what Eric had done, his voice hardened in a way that made me feel less alone. Send me his details, he said. If he's in Paris with that woman, we'll know exactly where. And within 48 hours I had photos. Eric and Lucy strolling hand in hand near the Seine. Laughing at a bistro. Shopping like royalty with my money. Lucy in a new coat, Eric in new shoes, bags dangling from their arms. Something inside me snapped, not with rage this time but with resolve. He thought he had won. He thought he'd left me behind, broken and scrambling. But what he didn't realize was that every step he took with her was one step closer to me tightening the rope. I wasn't just after revenge. I wanted exposure. Humiliation. The kind of consequence you can't shake off with an apology bouquet. So I worked quietly. I filed the emergency motions with my lawyer. I froze what accounts I could. And then I set a bigger plan into motion. Julian connected me to a private investigator in Paris. Someone who specialized in financial tracing. This man didn't just find people. He found their weaknesses. And Eric had plenty. Meanwhile, I kept up appearances at home. To my family, my friends, the neighbors, I played the part of a woman recovering from heartbreak. She's strong, they whispered. She's holding it together for her baby. They had no idea what was brewing behind my calm smile. And then one night the call came. Julian's voice buzzed with excitement. Claire, you're going to love this. He's reckless. He didn't even try to hide his spending. Hotel suites, jewelry, cash withdrawals, he's burning through money like it's endless. Good. Let him. Because the higher he built his little Parisian castle, the more spectacular it would be when I tore it down brick by brick. The next morning I sat at my kitchen table, baby monitor beside me, papers spread out like a battlefield map. I whispered to myself. You thought I was weak, Eric. But you have no idea who you left behind. And in that moment I stopped being his wife. I became his reckoning. But this story isn't just about me. It's about anyone who's been underestimated. Anyone who's been betrayed and told they'd never rise again. So pause for a second. If you've ever felt written off, invisible, underestimated, drop a comment with your city or country. I want to know how far this message is reaching. I booked my ticket quietly. One suitcase, one passport, one plan. Paris wasn't a dream anymore. It was a battlefield. And Eric had no idea that I was already crossing the ocean to dismantle everything he thought he owned. On the flight, I sat by the window staring down at clouds that looked soft enough to fall into. But my thoughts weren't soft. They were sharp, cutting, deliberate. I replayed every moment he had humiliated me. Every lie, every smirk, every time he dismissed me as just his wife. And I whispered under my breath, not anymore. Julian met me at the airport. Paris smelled like bread, smoke and money, everything Eric wanted to drown himself in. Julian handed me a phone with a French SIM card, a map marked with locations, and a photo of Eric kissing Lucy outside a boutique. He's arrogant, Julian said. Men like him, they dig their own graves. You just have to give them a little push. That night I stood across the street from their hotel. Golden light spilled from the lobby windows and there he was, Eric, laughing, his hand on Lucy's back like she was some kind of prize he'd won. He looked lighter, younger even, as if betrayal had taken weight off his shoulders. But he didn't look behind him. He never did. The first move was surveillance. Julian's investigator followed them everywhere. Documented every extravagant dinner, every credit card swipe, every euro of my stolen money. He handed me a folder thicker than my marriage certificate, and each receipt was another nail in Eric's coffin. Meanwhile, I began to weave my revenge. It wasn't enough to confront him. No, I wanted him to choke on his own arrogance. So I staged it carefully. Step 1, I called Lucy. Not as myself but as someone else. I disguised my voice, softened it. Madam, I'm calling from Banque de Paris. We've noticed some irregular activity on your joint account with Monsieur Eric. Her sharp intake of breath told me everything. She had no idea. He hadn't told her the money was stolen from his wife, from his child. He had painted himself as the provider, the successful man. And now she would start to doubt. Step 2. I let Eric see me. Just once. Outside a cafe I walked past, sunglasses covering my eyes, coat collar up. He froze mid-laugh, his glass halfway to his lips. For a second he thought he was seeing a ghost. But when he blinked I was gone. Julian laughed when I told him. You're haunting him, he said. Good. Let him sweat. But I wasn't here to haunt. I was here to destroy. The next day I slipped into the hotel lobby, my heart pounding but my smile steady. The clerk greeted me in French and I slid a folded bill across the counter. Monsieur Eric and which suite? Money talks. Within seconds I had the number. I didn't go upstairs. Not yet. Instead I walked back out into the street, stood on the curb and let Paris spin around me. The city hummed with life, but all I could hear was Eric's voice in my memory. You'll never make it without me. He was right about one thing. I didn't make it without him. I became unstoppable without him. And soon the world, his world, was about to know it. I walked back to my hotel room that night, the streets of Paris alive with music and laughter. Couples held hands under the glow of street lamps, tourists snapped photos, children giggled while chasing each other near the fountains. And yet I felt like a ghost among them. My chest was heavy with betrayal, and every step echoed with memories I didn't want to relive. Inside the hotel I sat at the little writing desk by the window overlooking the Seine. I opened my laptop and began scrolling through old emails between Michael and me, before Paris, before the lies. His words back then were filled with dreams, promises of forever and casual notes about our simple evenings together. Then I compared them with the ones he had sent in recent months. Short, rushed, vanical. Like obligations instead of love. I realized the change had begun long before the plane to Paris. Maybe I had ignored the signs. Maybe I had wanted to believe love could be stronger than greed. The door clicked and Eric walked in holding 2 cups of espresso. He placed one in front of me. You're not sleeping, are you? He asked, pulling up a chair. No, I admitted. I keep hearing his voice in my head. The lies. The way he looked at her like I didn't exist. Do you know what that feels like, Eric? He leaned back, sighing. More than I'd like to admit. Betrayal is the one thing that makes you question if you ever knew someone at all. He paused, then looked at me seriously. But remember this. Betrayal doesn't erase who you are. It doesn't erase what you've built. It only reveals who they are. I let his words sink in. They were heavy, yet they gave me strength. I need to see the bank files tomorrow, I said firmly. If I'm going to confront him, I need evidence. Not just emotions. Not just words. Eric nodded. Julian already secured copies. We'll go over them in the morning. That night I finally closed my laptop, crawled into bed, and stared at the ceiling until exhaustion dragged me into restless sleep. The next morning we met Julian at his office. His assistant led us into a sleek room with glass walls and a long table. Files were stacked neatly and on the screen was a spreadsheet that made my stomach churn. Here, Julian said, pointing with a silver pen. Transfers to accounts in Luxembourg. Wire withdrawals in cash. Luxury expenses in Paris boutiques. Hotels. Restaurants. He flipped the page and tapped at another line. And this, a purchase of an apartment under his lover's name. Just a few blocks from the Eiffel Tower. I clenched my jaw. My money. My sweat, my years of building, gone to fund their fantasy life. Julian studied me carefully. What do you want to do? I looked at him. I want every cent back. But more than that. I want him to see me, really see me when he realizes the life he built on my back is about to collapse. Eric glanced at me, a flicker of concern in his eyes. This isn't just about money anymore, is it? No, I whispered. It's about dignity. It's about truth. Julian leaned forward. Then you'll need to confront him directly. But not in anger. With power. I took a deep breath. How? Julian's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. Leave that to me. Later that day, I sat in a cafe across from the luxury apartment Julian had identified. Through the tall windows, I could see flashes of movement. Michael's silhouette, Lucy's laughter drifting faintly when the door opened briefly for a delivery. My heart pounded. For a moment I wanted to storm in, scream, demand answers. But I stayed still. Watching. Eric joined me at the table, setting down a croissant. Patience, he reminded me. Timing is everything. We waited. Minutes turned into hours. When the sun began to set, Michael stepped outside, dressed in a suit I had once bought him, adjusting the cufflinks I had chosen as a birthday gift years ago. Lucy clung to his arm, radiant in a silk dress, her hair styled perfectly. They looked like a power couple from a magazine. And yet all I saw was theft dressed up as glamour. I whispered almost to myself, he used me to become this. Eric's gaze hardened. And now you'll take back what's yours. That night, Julian arranged a private dinner at an upscale restaurant. The kind Michael loved to flaunt, the kind he thought proved his worth. But this time the reservation wasn't under his name, it was mine. I walked in wearing a black dress, simple but commanding, my hair pulled back to show the strength in my face. I felt nerves dancing under my skin, but my resolve was iron. Julian and Eric flanked me like silent anchors. When Michael and Lucy entered minutes later, the look on his face when he saw me already made the long nights worth it. His steps faltered. Lucy glanced at him, then at me, her smile fading. "Allison," he muttered, disbelief coloring his voice. I tilted my head slightly, a calm smile on my lips. "Bonsoir, Michael. Or should I call you Monsieur Dubois now?" He froze. Lucy's hand slipped from his arm. "I thought you might join me," I continued, gesturing to the empty chairs at my table. "Please sit." They hesitated, but curiosity, or maybe fear, pushed them to obey. For the first few minutes, silence stretched across the table, broken only by the clinking of silverware from nearby diners. Finally Michael leaned forward, his voice low. "What are you doing here?" "Enjoying Paris," I replied evenly. "And watching what my money has been paying for." His face paled. "You?" "Yes," I cut in sharply, my tone colder than the wine in my glass. "I know. About the accounts. The apartment. Every little indulgence." Lucy's lips parted, but no words came out. She looked like a deer caught in headlights. Michael tried to recover, his voice trembling slightly. "Allison, listen, things aren't what they look like." I leaned in. "Don't insult me, Michael. Not here. Not now. I didn't come all this way for excuses." His mouth snapped shut. I could feel every eye in the restaurant starting to notice us, sensing the tension at our table. I didn't care. For years I had been underestimated, dismissed, lied to. Tonight I wasn't shrinking. Julian smoothly placed a file folder on the table, sliding it toward Michael. "Bank statements. Property records. Witness accounts. Shall we continue pretending, or should we deal with reality?" Michael's hand twitched, but he didn't open the folder. His eyes darted between me, Julian, and Eric. "Allison," he tried again, desperation leaking through his tone, "please, let's talk privately." I shook my head slowly. "No, Michael. You lost the right to private conversations when you emptied my accounts and ran to Paris. Tonight we talk on my terms." Lucy finally found her voice. "You don't understand, he loves me." I turned my gaze to her, sharp enough to cut. "He loved what he could take. Just wait. You'll see." The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. Michael swallowed hard, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before. Not arrogance, not charm. Fear. And I knew then, this was only the beginning. The silence stretched across the table, long enough that the waiter hovering nearby shifted uncomfortably before retreating to give us space. Michael's jaw tightened as he glanced around the restaurant, clearly aware of the curious stares settling on our table. For a man who had always prided himself on control, this public unraveling was unbearable. "Allison," he said again, this time softer, almost pleading. "Let's not do this here." I leaned forward, my eyes never leaving his. "Here is exactly where we're doing this. You thought Paris was far enough away to bury the truth. You thought I'd never follow the trail. But I'm here now, Michael. And you're going to face what you've done." His fingers twitched toward the folder Julian had slid across the table, but he didn't open it. Lucy shifted nervously, glancing between us like a child caught in a storm she couldn't control. "This is insane," she whispered. "Michael, tell her. Tell her something. Quiet, he snapped at her, the sharpness in his tone betraying the cracks in his facade. My lips curved into the smallest of smiles. Funny. That tone isn't quite as charming when it isn't paired with gifts bought on my dime, is it? Julian's voice was smooth, almost clinical. Mr. Thompson, or should I say Monsieur Dubois, what you've done here isn't just morally bankrupt. It's legally questionable. These funds were misappropriated. These properties can be frozen. And these transfers can be traced. Michael's head jerked toward him, panic flickering in his eyes. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I do, Julian interrupted coolly. I built my career on men like you. Men who think they can reinvent themselves in Paris while burning the bridges behind them. The paper trail doesn't lie. Michael's voice cracked just slightly. Allison, you wouldn't. I finally leaned back, swirling the wine in my glass. Wouldn't what, Michael? Stand up for myself. Protect what I've built. After all the nights I stayed up working while you pretended to support me? After the way you made me feel small as if my dreams were silly? You ran to Paris with her, emptied my accounts, and expected me to vanish into the background. But you underestimated me. Again. His face flushed crimson. It wasn't like that. Lucy whispered. Then how was it? Michael glared at her, but she held her ground. For the first time I saw doubt cloud her expression. I leaned toward Lucy slightly. Do you even know whose money has been funding your Paris fairy tale? Do you know that the silk dress you're wearing, the dinners, the apartment, it's all stolen from me? Lucy's mouth opened then closed. Her hand slipped off the table into her lap. Michael snapped. Enough, Allison. You're humiliating us. No, Michael, I said calmly. You humiliated yourself. I'm just shining a light on it. Eric, silent until now, finally leaned forward. His voice was low, deliberate. I suggest you start cooperating, Michael. Because the choice in front of you is simple. Make things right or lose everything. And I mean everything. Michael's hands trembled slightly as he reached for the folder. He flipped it open, scanning the documents. His face drained of color. Every number, every date, every transfer. It was all there in black and white. There was no escape. Lucy gasped softly as her eyes fell on the page. Michael, this is all true? He slammed the folder shut, his voice rising. It's not what it looks like. But even he didn't sound convinced. I kept my voice steady, my tone sharp enough to cut glass. Then tell us. What does it look like, Michael? Tell Lucy. Tell me. Convince us both. He opened his mouth, but no words came. The silence that followed was deafening. Julian lifted his glass of wine, his gaze steady. That's what I thought. I stood slowly, the legs of my chair scraping against the polished floor. I didn't come here for excuses, Michael. I came for closure. For the truth. And now I have it. I turned to leave, but Michael's voice cracked behind me. Wait. Allison, please. I paused, my back to him. My voice was calm, almost cold. You made your choices. Now live with them. Then I walked away. The cool night air hit me as I stepped outside the restaurant, my heart pounding in my chest. Eric and Julian flanked me like shadows, their silence giving me space to breathe. My hands shook, but not from fear. From release. From the weight of years finally lifting. But this wasn't over. Not yet. Back at the hotel, I sat with Julian and Eric as we spread out the documents across the table. Julian tapped a specific line on one of the pages. This account, he said, holds the bulk of what he stole. It can be frozen within 48 hours if we file the motion immediately. The property too. It's in her name, but the source of funds can be challenged. Paris doesn't look kindly on fraud. I nodded slowly. Do it. Eric studied me carefully. You realize once this begins there's no turning back. He'll be exposed. Publicly. I met his gaze. Good. He's hidden in the shadows long enough. It's time the world sees who he really is. The next 2 days moved like a storm. Julian filed the paperwork, leveraging his network with ruthless efficiency. The bank account was flagged. The apartment was put under review. And whispers began circulating in the very circles Michael had fought so hard to impress. I didn't have to spread the rumors. Paris has a way of feeding on scandal. One dinner party mention turned into 5. A hushed conversation at a gallery became a headline in a society blog. Soon Michael's name was being spoken with suspicion, his reputation unraveling as quickly as he had built it. But still there was a part of me unsettled. Revenge is sharp, yes. But it doesn't always fill the void it leaves behind. Late one evening as I walked along the Seine, the lights of the Eiffel Tower shimmering above me, Eric joined me silently. We walked in comfortable quiet for a while before he finally said, "You've done it. You've taken back control. How does it feel?" I exhaled slowly. Like I've been carrying a stone in my chest for years and I finally set it down. But also, empty. Because what I wanted most once wasn't revenge. It was love. Eric nodded. And now, I whispered, staring at the glittering lights, I want peace. And I want to build again. But this time on my terms. He was quiet for a moment, then smiled faintly. That sounds like the truest revenge of all. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized that somewhere in the chaos, I had found an ally I hadn't expected. Someone who had seen me at my weakest and never flinched. The thought scared me, but it also gave me hope. The storm, however, wasn't done with Michael. The next morning Julian called. "He's desperate," he said flatly. "The account is frozen. The property flagged. His so-called friends are avoiding him. He's asking for a meeting." My stomach tightened. "And what do you suggest?" Julian's voice was sharp. "Meet him. Not to forgive. Not to reconcile. To finish this." I closed my eyes, the image of Michael's face flashing in my mind. The man I had once loved, now reduced to a cornered liar. Did I owe him that meeting? Did I owe myself? When I opened my eyes, my voice was steady. "Set it up." We met 3 nights later in a quiet corner of the same restaurant where the confrontation had begun. But this time there were no luxury suits, no shimmering dresses. Michael looked smaller somehow, his eyes hollow, his shoulders heavy. Lucy wasn't with him. "Allison," he said, his voice hoarse. "Please, listen. I made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But I can fix this. I just need your help." I studied him for a long moment. This was the man who had once made me laugh until my stomach hurt, who had held me when I cried, who had promised forever. And yet, looking at him now, all I saw was a stranger. "You didn't just make mistakes," I said quietly. "You made choices. You chose greed. You chose betrayal. You chose her over me. And now you want me to save you." His lips trembled. "I was scared, Allison. Of being ordinary. Of being left behind. You were soaring and I felt small. He made me feel powerful. Important. But it was never real. None of it. Please, I see that now. I need you." For a moment, my chest ached with the memory of the man I had once loved. But then I remembered the empty accounts. The cold nights. The way he had looked at Lucy as if I didn't exist. I stood slowly. "You don't need me, Michael. You need to live with yourself. And that's a punishment I wouldn't wish on anyone." His face crumbled as I turned and walked away for the last time. But this wasn't just an ending. It was the beginning of something else. Something new. And as I stepped out into the Paris night, I knew one thing for certain. The sweetest revenge wasn't his ruin. It was my freedom. The night I left Michael sitting alone in that restaurant, I thought it was the last time I would ever see him. His eyes had been hollow, his voice cracking under the weight of his own ruin. But Paris has a way of twisting fates together whether you want it or not. The very next morning, Lucy showed up at the hotel. Eric was the one who spotted her first, standing in the lobby with her arms wrapped tightly around herself, mascara streaking down her cheeks. She didn't look like the woman I had seen clinging to Michael's arm at that first Paris dinner. The glamour was gone, stripped away by fear and shame. "Allison," she said when I stepped off the elevator. Her voice wavered, childlike. "Please. Can I talk to you?" Eric stiffened beside me, his protective instinct clear, but I nodded. 5 minutes. We sat in the corner of the lobby cafe, the clinking of cups and the murmur of French conversation buzzing around us like background music. Lucy fidgeted with the edge of a napkin, her hands trembling. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I swear to you I didn't know he took it from you. He told me the money was his, that he built it from smart investments, that you were bitter because you couldn't let go. I believed him. I was stupid." Her eyes lifted to mine, pleading. "I thought he loved me. But the second things got hard, he turned on me. He screamed at me last night, called me a liability. Said I ruined everything. And then he left. There was the pattern. Michael's charm turning sour once the illusion cracked. You thought you were different, I said quietly. I thought I was too once. But this is who he is, Lucy. Not just with me. With everyone. Tears spilled over her lashes. What do I do now? I took a slow breath. A part of me wanted to tell her it wasn't my problem. That she had made her bed and now she had to lie in it. But another part of me, the part that still remembered what it felt like to be blindsided, to have the ground pulled out from under you, couldn't bring itself to be cruel. You pick yourself up, I said. You rebuild. And this time, you don't let anyone convince you that your worth comes from their approval. If you're smart, you'll go back home. Start over before Paris eats you alive. She nodded, biting her lip. Do you hate me? I held her gaze. No. I don't waste hate on people who've already lost everything. For a moment she looked like she might collapse into sobs again. But then she straightened, gave me a shaky nod and stood. Thank you, she whispered, and then she was gone. Eric watched her leave, his brow furrowed. You were kinder than I would have been. I sipped my coffee, my voice flat. I wasn't doing it for her. I was doing it for me. The fallout came quickly. Within a week, Michael's name was splashed across Parisian society blogs and whispered at every gallery opening. American businessman faces allegations of fraud. High society romance crumbles under scandal. The exact details didn't matter. Paris feeds on stories, not facts. And the story was delicious. Julian sent me updates daily, each one more devastating for Michael than the last. Accounts frozen. Credit cards declined. Invitations rescinded. By the time 2 weeks had passed, he had gone from darling expat entrepreneur to pariah. I didn't see him again, but I didn't need to. Paris is a small city when you're on the inside, but when you're cast out, it's endless, lonely. And that was exactly where Michael was now. But revenge has a strange way of leaving an echo behind. I would lie awake some nights, staring at the ceiling of the hotel room, wondering if I had gone too far, or not far enough. The image of his face crumbling in that restaurant haunted me. Not because I pitied him, but because I recognized the emptiness in his eyes. It was the same emptiness I had once feared in myself. Eric noticed. One night, as we walked along the Champs-Élysées, he slipped his hand gently against my elbow to slow me down. You keep drifting, he said softly. I'm fine, I lied. He shook his head. No, you're not. You're free of him, yes. But freedom is overwhelming when you've been caged for so long. You need to fill the space with something or it'll swallow you. I stopped walking, staring at the glowing Arc de Triomphe ahead of us. What if I don't know what to fill it with? He smiled faintly. Then we figure it out. One step at a time. There was something steady in his presence, something grounding. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel completely alone. 3 weeks after the confrontation, Julian called me into his office. The sleek space smelled faintly of espresso and leather, the Paris skyline glittering through the wide windows. He slid a thick envelope across the desk. It's over, he said simply. Legally, financially, he's finished. You'll get back what was stolen. Not everything, but enough. More importantly, he can't touch you again. I stared at the envelope without opening it. My hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the realization that this chapter was truly closing. Thank you, I whispered. Julian nodded once, his expression softening. You were stronger than most, Allison. Don't forget that. As I left his office, Eric waiting for me downstairs, a strange calm settled over me. For the first time since that awful text message. Moving to Paris with Lucy. I emptied our account. I felt like I could breathe again. But Paris wasn't just a place of endings. It was also becoming the place of my beginning. I started spending mornings at a small cafe near the Latin Quarter, scribbling in notebooks, sketching out ideas that had nothing to do with Michael, nothing to do with the past. Designs. Plans. Dreams I had buried years ago because I thought they didn't fit the mold of the life we were supposed to build together. And in the afternoons, Eric would join me. Sometimes we'd walk aimlessly through the winding streets. Sometimes we'd sit in silence by the river. Sometimes we'd talk for hours about everything and nothing. It was slow, gentle, unhurried. A kind of healing I hadn't known I needed. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the city, painting the rooftops gold, Eric turned to me. His voice was quiet but sure. You know, he said, The best revenge isn't just surviving what they did to you. It's thriving in spite of it. It's standing taller, smiling brighter, building bigger than they ever imagined you could. I looked at him, the Paris light catching in his eyes. And for the first time in a very long time, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, he was right. But Paris wasn't done with me yet. Because one night as I walked back to the hotel, the air crisp and cool, I saw a figure slumped on a bench near the Seine. Even from a distance I recognized him. Michael. He looked like a ghost of himself. His once tailored suit was wrinkled and dirty, his hair unkempt, his eyes vacant. A bottle dangled loosely from his hand. Our eyes met across the space. For a moment time froze. And then, in a voice so broken I barely recognized it, he whispered, "Allison?" Michael's voice carried across the night air like a ghost, fragile and faint. "Allison." I froze, my pulse pounding. Part of me wanted to turn away, to keep walking, to leave him to the wreckage he had created. But my feet wouldn't move. Some unseen thread pulled me closer. I stopped a few steps from the bench. The smell of alcohol hit me first, sharp and sour. His once confident frame was hunched, his shoulders sagging as though the very weight of his choices had crushed him. "You look," I started then stopped. The words felt cruel, and cruelty was something I no longer wanted on my tongue. "What are you doing here?" He laughed bitterly, the sound hollow. "Where else would I go? No one wants me. Not Lucy, not the friends who toasted me over champagne last month, not the investors who begged for my time. All gone. Just like that." His fingers tightened around the bottle. "But you're still here." I shook my head. "No, Michael. I'm not here for you. I just happened to walk by." His eyes, bloodshot and desperate, searched mine. "I made a mistake." His voice cracked. "I thought Paris would save me. I thought he spat Lucy's name like poison, would make me feel alive again. But it was always you, Allison. Always. The old version of me. The woman who had bent, who had forgiven, who had clung to the hope that he might someday change, would have leaned in. She would have believed him. But that woman was gone." I straightened, my voice steady. "You didn't make a mistake, Michael. You made choices. Over and over again you chose yourself. Your greed. Your pride. And now this is where it led you." He flinched as though I had struck him. "You can't just leave me like this." I stared at him for a long moment. The man I had once loved was still there, somewhere under the ruin. But love without respect is nothing but a chain. And I wasn't bound anymore. "Yes," I said softly. "I can." And with that I turned and walked away. Behind me I heard him call my name again, his voice breaking across the river's quiet, but I didn't look back. Not once. Back at the hotel, Eric was waiting in the lobby. The moment he saw my face he stood, concern flickering in his eyes. "You saw him, didn't you?" I nodded. And it's done." My voice was calm, final. "There's nothing left for me there." Eric exhaled slowly, then reached out, brushing his hand lightly against mine. "Then maybe it's time to start thinking about what's next." I looked at him, really looked at him. The steadiness, the quiet strength, the way he never pushed but always showed up. And for the first time the future didn't feel like a void. It felt like possibility. Weeks passed and the city shifted around me. Paris in springtime is a miracle. Cafes spilling onto sidewalks, flowers blooming in unexpected corners, strangers laughing under the soft glow of street lamps. And in that city I began to build again. Not for Michael. Not for anyone else's approval. For me. My designs, once scribbles in the margins of notebooks, turned into sketches, then prototypes, then meetings with real investors who believed in me. Not because of who I had married but because of the vision I carried. I had thought my story was one of revenge. Of proving myself. But as the days stretched into months I realized it was something bigger. It was about reclaiming my own voice. The last I ever heard of Michael was a rumor. That he had left Paris quietly, slipping away under the shadow of disgrace, heading back to the States with nothing but debts and regrets. I didn't chase the details. His ending wasn't my story anymore. My story was the one unfolding in the cobblestone streets of Paris. In the soft laughter that escaped me when Eric made some quiet joke. In the thrill of watching my work come alive in ways I had once only dreamed of. Sometimes, late at night, I would stand on my balcony looking out over the city of lights and think about how close I had come to losing myself. And every time I whispered the same promise to the girl who had once felt so small, so powerless, so dismissed. Never again. Because the sweetest revenge isn't watching them fall. It's rising so high they can't even see you anymore.